Our North London special, Kathleen and Phil are here. Before we get into that though, Phil, the cricket team, somebody was mentioning earlier on that they need a mention. They do need a mention. 466 for 6 at the moment in the second test against Sri Lanka. And Camper has gone on to 103. We had Sterling on 103, but Bernie was out for 95. Sorry, Sterling was out for 103. So this is not bad.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, well, you consider how badly Ireland were beaten in the first test against Sri Lanka, and then good opening day yesterday. And Paul Sterling actually had to retire yesterday, injured. Such is the heat there, but he resumed this morning on 74, got to 103. So he has centuries in all formats now of international cricket. His first test century, and as I said in the last few minutes, Curtis Camphor's just gone to 103. So yeah, it's going well, and we're on day 2. So like, even just, you were thinking about an hour and a half ago, if they got to 450, that would be a really good start. And now you're starting to think, can we get to the 500?
So this is our first innings. We're just going to keep going here. It's day 2. We're not declaring or anything.
Sri Lanka declared nearly on 600 the last time in the first test. Yeah, okay. And obviously, they didn't even have to bat for their second innings because they beat us so comfortably. So that's what makes it even more remarkable that we've bounced back.
Right, that's a very good sign.
It's great. I always enjoy coming in early in the morning. There's live sport on your TV, and especially when an Ireland cricket team is doing well.
In glorious Technicolor sunshine as well. Right, let's move to Spurs and Arsenal. Kathleen, before we get to Arsenal and whether or not they're going to win the league, the Arsenal team coming back from the 2-2 draw against Wolfsburg had a minor incident with the plane.
Just a minor one. They were on the tarmac and they were just getting ready to take off, and the plane went on fire. And actually, I saw photos of it, and actually the wing was properly on fire because a bird flew into it.
Right.
So as our very own Emma Carroll said, someone clearly doesn't want Arsenal to do well. It kind of topped off what was probably the most traumatic week of my life, watching Arsenal, from drawing 2-2 with West Ham, losing Kim Little, then losing against United in the WSL, then losing Leah Williamson, then drawing with Southampton, and then drawing 2-2 at Wolfsburg. I didn't know whether I was going up or down for most of the week. And then this plane incident, I was like, that's just it. I'm retiring now from football. I'm done.
That's the first leg of the Champions League semi-final.
Yeah, so that was first leg. Obviously, no one actually really expected them to go out and I think perform in the way that they did. They went 2-0 down and it seemed like, that was it. Katie McCabe was absolutely sensational. She took the captain's armband for it. There's actually a great piece in Arse blog today analysing all the different positions she played in. She played quite centrally for a lot of the game because Arsenal midfield was a real issue for them, and she would come in from the wings quite a lot to support there. But yeah, so the return leg is on Monday in the Emirates, 5:45, and they've already sold 45,000 tickets. So it's going to be an incredible night.
So Katie McCabe's gone from being potentially leaving the club to now captaining the team in Champions League.
Yeah, well, in the space of last week, Arsenal lost their captain and vice captain, and she's the next person really in the squad that you would expect to step up into that position. So, I mean, Kim Little's out at least until the start of next season, and Leah Williamson's done her ACL, so it looks like Katie's going to have the captain's armband at Arsenal and Ireland for a while to come.
Right, no harm from an Ireland perspective.
Any ramifications for her Irish kind of role with the way she's playing for Arsenal at the moment, in terms of going in centrally in the last...
I don't think so, because I think she is required to do a very different thing for Arsenal in what she's required for Ireland. Actually, she's probably, in the sense that because there's been so many injuries in the squad, 5 of the top best Arsenal players are all out at the moment with serious long-term injuries. She definitely has had to swap around her roles a lot more, which is probably closer to what she's had to do with Arsenal in terms of supporting players in positions that she doesn't normally have to do at Arsenal because they have the quality of players there. But I think the main worry would be that she is now integral to that Arsenal team. There's 4 games left in the WSL plus the Champions League, and as we all know, Katie isn't afraid of a tackle. So for me, it would be more just the amount of games, the amount of minutes she's going to have to play over the next couple of weeks, and the fact that Arsenal players have a tendency to get injured. She was flying into tackles in that Wolfsburg game at the weekend.
Yeah, it's a euphemism, right?
I wish it was.
She should have been sent off though, right?
Yeah, she should have been. So Lena Oberdorf, one of the great German players, she was young player at the Euros last year, tackled one of the Arsenal players, and Katie just went straight for her. It was a mix between a shove, a chest shove, a hand shove, and then also she looked like if she had got a little bit closer to her, she would have headbutted her as well. Referee only showed her a yellow card. I thought it probably should have been a red, but Oberdorf did shake her hand afterwards. She'd be the sort of player herself who wouldn't be too shy of throwing in a tackle.
Game recognised game.
It's proper sport. It's warriors.
Leadership, though. She saw one of her teammates getting done, and she said, "Right, I'm gonna." And also because you have the captain's armband, you only get a booking.
Yeah.
She didn't have it, maybe she could have got a red.
But the only thing with that is that, like, say, so she was missing for the United game because she'd got 5 yellow cards, and like one of those yellow cards was just for time wasting. So like it's one thing showing the leadership, but like they needed her in that game and she wasn't able to play. So I'm all for it, but I'm like, choose your moments. Like if she gets sent off and misses like the next game or misses the Champions League final, that's do or die for Arsenal. But yeah, be interesting. There's a new episode of Koi Gig out this morning. It should be in all your podcast feeds, and Emma Byrne was talking a bit about Arsenal's chances, because obviously Emma Byrne has won a Champions League, so she knows what she's talking about, and she was saying that she thinks Arsenal might be able to do it this year. So.
All right, well, so next Monday, Bank Holiday Monday, it's 5:45. Is that what you said? Kickoff?
Yeah, it's on DAZN on YouTube, so it's free to watch as well. So literally, as long as you have YouTube, you'll be able to watch it.
Okay, let's talk Spurs. Ryan Mason replaces Cristian Stellini as interim Spurs boss. Is this one of the worst bad decisions that anybody's ever made ever? Like,
we've had Lampard.
Well, don't forget, Ryan Mason was brought in before the League Cup final against Manchester City when Jose Mourinho was let go, and I know things hadn't gone well for Mourinho and Spurs were just sick of him, but I remember thinking at the time, you just hold on to him for this game. Was there the worry that they'd actually beat City and then they'd have to hold on to him?
do you think there was a massive bonus for winning a trophy in the contract? I suspect there was a massive bonus.
Well, I just remember thinking back to that League Cup final, you have a better chance of beating City with Mourinho than you do with Ryan Mason.
Absolutely.
Like, this just goes
Makes
to
no sense.
What they're doing at Spurs in terms of the leadership or lack of, it's been an absolute mess since Pochettino. Obviously the highs they had under Pochettino of a team that was challenging for the league title and playing really good football, then they didn't give him the backing, then he leaves, and then they start bringing in short-term fixes, managers that you wouldn't associate with Spurs, because what you look at what Arsenal are doing, they hired a young coach, gave him time, and look what's happened. Whereas that's kind of what you think Spurs would do. But as soon as they went down the Mourinho route, and then they brought in Nuno Espirito Santo, who, if anyone had watched Wolves, and also this guy played for Mourinho, and he's not as good as Mourinho. So they replaced Mourinho with a guy that's not as good as him. And then they brought in Conte, who we know
doesn't stay very
again
long.
is short term. But even when he won the league with Chelsea, the first day of the next season he turned up in a tracksuit because he was that pissed off that he didn't get backed in the summer. And then, you know, he goes and wins the FA Cup that season, but he's gone. So there's no good decisions being made at the moment, and you're just thinking that they have to get the next decision right. But
Spurs won't perform well until they get rid of Daniel Levy. I fully believe that, and I believe it for both the men's and the women's team, because the women's is as chaotic as the men's, and it's a club issue. It's like the people that Levy brings in and the people that are making the decisions around him and the coaches he wants to bring in are just all wrong for the club.
Can I just play devil's advocate in this for a minute, right? Like, in terms of a club that is well run, is on an even financial key,
Great stadium.
does not require an injection of cash from a despotic, nation state, and has still managed to reach a Champions League final, compete for a league, like, you know, they've taken a situation and they've turned the club into something really valuable that is self-financing. And as owners go, sure, they've made some bad decisions, but, like, you know, show me the paradigm of good ownership in the Premier League at the moment. That would be my counter argument to,
But does it depend as well, like, what you're expecting off the pitch or what you're expecting off the club? So, like, I think if you ask most Spurs supporters, would you mind if the club was in a bit of debt? Like, I'm not talking like Glazers sort of debt where they're like tanking the club and like the ability of the club as a result. But if you ask most Spurs supporters, would you prefer that stability or would you prefer stability on the pitch? What do you think the answer is going to be?
I think the Glazers have managed to bankroll one of the most expensive wage bills in world football over the last decade and a half, and while they've been an easy target for Manchester United fans, ultimately the club is going to get sold to somebody who's going to come in and leave it debt free. So I suspect that the Spurs fans would actually prefer that style of ownership, because the Glazers have, if they'd got the manager right, instead of picking bad managers over the last number of years, they would have been more successful.
Spurs should be a very attractive place to go as well for players. It's London, it's a great stadium, it's a big club if they get the right man in charge.
I remember talking to an Inter Milan fan when Conte got the job, and he was like, "Oh, Spurs are going to win the league. Conte wins the league everywhere he goes." So, like, on the face of it, he was the best available candidate in world football, and for whatever reason, they fell out, and they fell out pretty quickly.
Yeah, and don't forget, they finished last season really strongly. Where they pipped Arsenal and they beat Arsenal. I remember they took a point off Liverpool. They put a bit of a dent in Liverpool's title hopes, and they were just so hard to beat. And you could see, right, this is exactly what Conte was brought here to do.
And Kulusevski looked like a good signing.
Yeah, and they signed a few players in the summer, and you thought, right, they're going to build on this. And even you think back to the game at Stamford Bridge earlier in the season with him and Tuchel going head to head, and Spurs got a draw in that game where Chelsea were the better team that day, but Spurs dug in, and you were like, right, this is Spurs now under Conte. But soon, he talked like a manager who wanted to be sacked, and eventually that's what happened. And it just seemed like a bizarre decision to keep Stellini there, who was part of it.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense. And then sacking him a month later, like, it was clear he wasn't going to be able to pilot the team to Champions League football, and they needed to act and find somebody, and they haven't done that. So do we know? Is it Nagelsmann's going to get this gig?
Well, it seems to be the two names are Nagelsmann or Arne Slot, the Feyenoord manager.
Okay.
Who, he was talked about being a potential Leeds manager earlier in the season, but he top of the league at Feyenoord. He's going to win the league with Feyenoord,
which is
only their second title in 20 years. And not only that, he obviously got to the final of the Conference League last season. They lost to Roma. They've just been beaten by Roma in the quarterfinals of the Europa League. They were a couple of minutes away from going through until Dybala scored, and then it went to extra time, and Roma have gone through. But they play a really good brand of football, exciting brand, and he's somebody that would, and I think Nagelsmann as well. I know, like, Bayern Munich are looking pretty foolish now for getting rid of him, because Thomas Tuchel's had a bit of a shocker apart from the opening game when they beat Dortmund. But Nagelsmann, I think, would be more suited to Tottenham than he would have been to Chelsea.
Okay.
I think.
So either of those two are good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Luis Enrique's name's disappeared off the register for all of these available jobs. The Chelsea job's going to Pochettino, according to the papers today.
Yeah, and you just wonder now, like, could Spurs do something where they thought, right, there's a lot of talk of Pochettino going to Chelsea. Maybe we get rid of Stellini and we say to Maurizio Pochettino, come on back.
It doesn't look like they're in talks.
No.
It looks like that's not on the...
him and Daniel Levy are still very good friends, though.
Right. Like an ex,
Well, there was a lot of criticism, wasn't there, away like Spurs previously when they initially got rid of Conte, how they conducted, like, talking to people like Luis Enrique. So maybe they've actually started doing the right thing and doing it on the damn low.
Not telling everybody about it.
Yeah.
Oh, look, we're having loads of chats with everybody. Here's our list. It's like, am I on the list? Am I not on the list? Not necessarily the best way to do it. So the list of stuff that's happened to Spurs since the World Cup. Sheffield United beat them in with their second string team.
Yeah.
Conte had that rant that was 8.5 minutes long
after the Southampton game when they conceded.
And Fabio Paratici, the Paratici thing is like, oh, you're going to be the brains of the operation, and then he gets banned. But they knew about his ban. This is mad.
Yeah,
it is. So look, that's the counter to the club has been well run over a long period of time. They've made a lot of catastrophic decisions recently, and you'd have to wonder, would Slot fix everything in one? Is that like...
No, whoever it is not going to fix it in one go, but that's like, it's very hard to do that now. I mean, even as good a job I think as Ten Hag has done this season, there's obviously been results where you think, whoa, that's not good, but then you have to take a step back and realise, like, it's the first season. So one thing, if they were to get Arne Slot, he demands that his teams are very fit,
right,
and they can play some really like exhilarating, fast attacking football, especially watching them in the Conference League last season. You know, they would have had Sinistera, who plays for Leeds now. Malacia was there. Senesi, who plays for Bournemouth. Reece Nelson was on loan there. Like sometimes they could score that classic goal where they're defending a set piece and then 10 seconds later they've the ball in the back of the net because they break with such pace. So, but he did a good job at Alkmaar, got the job at Feyenoord, finished third last season, and he's going to win the league. So that would suggest that he's a very good manager.
Okay, last one for now. Arsenal's fixture list is away at Man City, Chelsea at home, away at Newcastle, Brighton at home, away at Forest, and then Wolves at home. That's a pig of a fixture list, really, Kathleen, at this stage. So
yeah, no, it
isn't. You've Chelsea are very, very beatable.
Brighton
and Newcastle would kind of be the two that would stick out. Well, obviously City as well.
Forest
tomorrow.
still fighting the second last game of the season. Won't be relegated by that stage.
I think you have to look at the way they've performed over the last couple of weeks, and unless Arteta is able to pull something out of this team, I was looking back on how every player has played, and especially the last 3 games, and it just seems like mentally, I don't know if they're there. There was one of Zinchenko crying after Trent Alexander-Arnold got the better of him during the Liverpool game, and I was like, that doesn't strike me as a team that are mentally in the right headspace. The Southampton game, you can argue that they did fight their way back into it, but they shouldn't have fought their way back into it. I think that was actually the worst match of the season that I had watching Arsenal. It looked like Saka was the main player that was kind of pulling the squad through that, and you don't want your youngest player to be the one that's stepping up. You want your Gabriel Jesus not to be throwing himself around the box and to be actually taking his shots. So yeah, I think looking at that fixture list, unless Arteta has something magic up his sleeve, the title may be gone.
Yeah, look, William Saliba, it's all fallen apart since he's gone. And Rob Holding, the thoughts of him playing against City tomorrow. Now, Kathleen mentioned Saka. If Saka couldn't get at City, then they have a chance. I wonder, with the results the last few games, will it actually maybe work in Arsenal's favour, where they think, right, we actually have to have a go here? But yeah, I still just think Rob Holding, I don't know, is there a case that you start Ben White as a centre half, but you've no right back then? You could be playing someone like Reece Nelson as a right back.
They've had an amazing season, regardless of what happens.
Absolutely, yeah.
Their points tally is really, really, really good.
They have to win this game if they're going to win the league, though.
They do.
I think even if they win tomorrow, they still won't win the league.
Yeah, that's actually true also. Yeah.
Okay.
Breaking my heart here, guys.
But at least it's in their own hands.
Well, it's just that I think the fixture list is tricky for them.
Yeah, but I still think this has been a massive success of a season, in the sense that no one put Arsenal in this position. They're only ones to have put it up against City, and I know they have blown it, and I totally accept that. But I have gone past the point of caring at this stage. I'm just happy that finally we have an Arsenal team that is competing in the way they're competing, because
it's good to feel alive. Yeah, exactly. OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition is available